Hey there.
Hey, can you hear me okay, Andy?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you?
Great, and yourself there.
Doing well, thank you.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Busy guy, the album's out in 3 days or something like that. But this is the sixth studio album, if I have that correct.
That's
At this
correct.
point, is it old hat to be like, hey, new album, yeah? Or is it still just this big exciting thing for you?
Yeah, it's still the big exciting thing. We don't release records that often either. It's sort of a, every 3 or 4 years um, process. So yeah, I'm definitely, I got the week of jitters for sure.
Uh, State of the World aside, was it an easy album for you to make?
It was not easy in any capacity. It was enjoyable. It was the first time, I really tried to make an effort and it ended up working to just like enjoy being there and not feel like um, it was some daunting, because it is a daunting,
Yeah.
goal, and we're ambitious in what we want to try and do. But yeah, it was just like, man, we're getting to make a great record and great studios, and let's try and like enjoy ourselves. So that helped the mentality of working on it for so long.
One thing I don't know about you, because you managed to be one of those bands that always let the music do the talking, and that's intended to be a compliment. It's not like Alice Cooper likes golf and sushi, and we know that about that, and we know that this member of this band likes craft beer. We don't
Right.
really know that about Manchester Orchestra, and I'm assuming that's partially by design that you let the music do the talking per se. But when it comes to songwriting, are you the kind of guy where every word you're singing is something that happened to you? Or are you at this point in your career able to just channel characters and do take that approach of things that you're actually writing about other people and other people's scenarios?
Oh, I think all of the above, and I've sort of been that way forever. There's certainly more. There are some songs that are really personal and directly first person for me, but um, I've always found that I can sort of dig deeper emotionally into certain parts of my brain, where when I place myself in another character's shoes, and so it may be an instance of writing from either historical or a fictional character. But I mean, of course, I'm sort of processing stuff through that as well. So yeah, I think it's a mixed bag of all those things.
The reason that's fresh in my mind is I just remembered these liner notes that I read by Rick Ocasek. It was some retrospective of the Cars greatest hits, the Cars best of. And he was reflecting on the songs. He said something like, I've never written one song that was about anything that had to do with my life. I remember being heartbroken initially because you're thinking there are these very relatable songs. And then on the other hand, you realize, oh, so songwriting is a craft like plumbing or engineering or anything like that,
Yeah.
that you get better. Did you know that from day one that songwriting was really a craft like that?
No, not at all. Songwriting was a means to process emotions and thoughts and fears and love and loss. That was all it was for me at the beginning. And of course, as I've become more of a student, well, I would basically try and figure out why I love certain songs by certain people, and started to figure out who my favorite songwriters and poets and people, why is that affecting me that way? And then you try and emulate that in your youth and figure out how they're looking at all that stuff. I mean, a guy like Rick, that's like a scientist, so that makes sense to me. Like I imagine that the songs for him would be another limb of the process. Like what the songs were about was just as important as the drum sounds. I have no idea if that's how I looked at it, but that makes sense to me. And I think I've turned into more of that as it's gone on, where not that it's not a personable thing, but like everything's important and they all need to be working together in unison. That's a part of a track. And so I'd say I spend even more time on lyrics than I used to. That's an important part.
Does that mean that you're now nerdy to the point where you go, well, I like the B section, but the C section and pre-chorus needs work? Do you do that, or is that just too gross?
Yeah. No, God, yeah, of course I do that. I do that for 24 months in a row.
Got it. So I take it that you're not, 9 to 5ing the way that you songwrite. I think it was Ben Gibbard or somebody that I learned about that he treats it like a day job songwriting, where he goes to the office, he writes all day, and as opposed to going, I feel inspired.
Yeah, I've never been able to do the songwriting, like just me and a guitar or piano 9 to 5 thing. Certainly get more militant when it comes to the band writing stuff together in the studio.
Mhm.
That's way more, 10 to 10 kind of vibes. But I also think having children has sort of taken away the ability to write long form songs in the moment. So a lot of what I have to do now is something comes to me, I hide somewhere with a phone, and I turn on voice memos, and I try and get this clearly genius idea out of my head before one of them, clearly, before one of them, tells me that they broke the television. So it's a little bit of a different process now. But at the same time, the spark's still from the same thing. And so I just have to now collect all those things like berries in the Arctic and, wait for till I can go be with the guys and then start kind of rehashing these ideas and figuring out what they're all about. But yeah, I don't even have the luxury of the 9 to 5 writing process. That's nowhere in my life at this particular moment.
Yet.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put that for album 7. But
yeah.
Well, another thing that I can't figure out about you, because you let the music do the talking, your band, from what I know, you don't break into stupid covers live the way that some bands kind of do. So I don't know if you were ever like a hair metal kind of guy before you liked the good music.
I wasn't, but my friend Matt, who is my next door neighbor, who I met a few years ago, he only likes that kind of music. Like it's sort of like the time he was getting into bands and when music really mattered to him was like a very distinct time of probably like 82, 3 to like 91, 2, something around there. Like these, and so I hear a lot of stuff from him, and he'll bring up references to me about certain songs. Oh, have you heard this thing? And it's still not my thing. But Matt, giving him a little bit more love, they have got a great band called Snowblind, and
Black Sabbath.
They play, and they will play 40 songs a night at the tavern next door. Back when we could all go do that, and I was a frequent guest at those shows for sure.
Got it. So you didn't have a phase when you were learning guitar where you just played too many notes, or you were trying to play too many notes?
No, dude, I grew up on like Blur Song 2 and Machine Head by Bush, and songs that you could play with one finger very easily. That was sort of my thing. And then I grew up in Toronto from 7 to 13 or 14. So like trying to figure out Our Lady Peace songs, which was great because the stuff that I wanted to learn how to play was all stuff that once I could sort of figure out what a chord was and have a chord chart, then I could go figure out the chords and start strumming along and playing. I was never into like learning the specifics of guitar. My very first guitar lesson when I was 13, the guy, I wanted to play Stairway to Heaven, and he said, do you want to learn it the right way, or do you want to like learn it the fast way? I was like, I would like to learn it the fast way, clearly. And that sort of started my caring about the vibe and the song and the thing far more than caring about the technicality of that stuff, which has since trickled in. And I do love that, but it's far more of like a learned idiot savant skill that I have now.
Well, the full circle thing on it all is that Our Lady Peace's first big tour of North America was opening up for Van Halen. So
wow,
you never know who the secret shredders are.
I would be interested to see how that went over with the Van Halen crowd.
What I gathered from interviewing the drummer Jeremy is that they were just all super psyched to be there. And that was the phase of time when Van Halen was still doing their own sound checks and still hanging out with the openers and be like, what do you guys want to hear? What do you want to do? That kind of a thing.
Right. What was the name of Our Lady Peace's first record? It wasn't Clumsy.
The second one was Clumsy. The first one,
I can't remember it.
I don't have that answer. Of the
right,
20 name drops I've given you, I was just
curious. I was just testing to see if you're a real fan. I see.
But most Americans have to go clumsy forward, and then that first record, it seems like almost every band that we liked that got signed to a major had one album on the major that did nothing before the breakthrough album.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All that happened.
That's true.
So the album is coming out. How much do you know about the future of the band? Are there things that are firm in general?
I mean, we all like being in the band. That's pretty firm. I think, we're not breaking up. That's firm.
Yeah.
We've canceled and booked 4 tours in the last 16 months. So you don't really know anything firm there. But, it's funny, man. Like this morning, I saw a nice review about our new album that was sent over to me. And it was sort of the first nice official review that we've gotten. Not that we've got a bad one yet. Those are coming, I'm sure. But we got a really nice review. And my brain, it's been this way since I ever saw my first nice review. I immediately, it's like the door slammed shut on the last chapter. And I immediately start to worry and wonder and just, oh God, what's the next thing going to be? And it's been that way forever. So, I think that's a good sign. It's a part of why we keep releasing records that are hopefully getting better and better and wider. But yeah, I know it's firm. I'm already thinking about the next one in a terrifying way.
It's very intriguing to me that how forward your band has gone, not just from the commercial sense. If we go back to the first or second album, you were doing all the American talk shows, your Craig Ferguson's and your Letterman's and all that. And usually that happens on the first album, and then that doesn't happen again, per se. Yeah. That's been consistent. The licensing for video games and TV and film, that's been pretty consistent. It's this long-term growth thing rather than one hit and everything petering out. I was curious how much of that is organic versus how much of it is just having great management and people pushing for you guys to get all the exposure.
I mean, truly from a very early place, we were a DIY band. And so the mentality of not having to depend on anybody, including management or a label or a licensing department, that's sort of that's our neutral in the car. That's sort of where we operate. So we had 2 analogies I would always preach, because we never wanted to be a band on our major label that would blow up, because that slims your chances historically of ever being able to follow up anything again. We didn't want people to feel like the first time they heard of Manchester Orchestra, it was like, oh my God, I want to stop hearing this band, which is funny in retrospect. It's not really the smartest business decision to be like, I don't want us to be popular yet. But that's how we thought. And we've always said it's a marathon. It's a long distance run. You really have to take your time and then hit doubles. My dad would always talk about baseball players that are in the Hall of Fame for hitting doubles. And it just felt if we could kind of continue to be consistent and get better and try harder. It has been a recipe that's, it's a slight incline, but it's a slight incline over a long time. And so it's really nice on records like this, where you look around and go, whoa, we built something here and it's real, Yeah.
Usually the first tour or 2 of a band, everything is maybe even beyond that first tour or 2. But when things are kind of happening, it's still hand to mouth. You're not really thinking of, hey, what's our monthly nut? Do we have a rehearsal space? Do we pay for a rehearsal space? Hey, this gear, do we buy it or lease it? Hey, do we buy this band? When did it become a real career kind of thing rather than a 1 tour at a time thing for you?
Pretty immediately. I mean, we were asking those questions right away. We were saving up money to buy those things. We were doing the budgets on how we could actually go do a 15-day tour and bring home a couple $1,000s. We were saving money. That was just in our DNA. That was the people that gave us our first shows. They toured that way. And so when we would see those bands, and there was this communal aspect to it, but there was $5 a day per diem. That's what you would eat, and you'd eat at the Wendy's, on the dollar menu. And like you said earlier, there's an exhilaration to it. I can't imagine trying to do that stuff. I can't imagine trying to relive the first 5 years of our band.
Yeah. Now
that would be next to impossible. I just wouldn't have the energy. But but we always tried to be, have our business in line. That was an important thing for us. And in a way, still doesn't feel like a job. So you kind of look up and go, holy shit, I'm really busy all the time with this band.
Right. So again, 6th album. I have to keep saying that because the whole reason we're talking is you got a new album.
Yeah.
And if we don't plug the album enough, I mean, stuff doesn't happen because this is such an important interview in that
That's what I'm saying. Thank God you're finally going to bring it up.
Exactly. But how many songs were written for the album?
Maybe 25 or 26. It's also hard to say because, like I was saying, I'm just sort of writing stuff. Like someone asked, are you working on the new one? I'm like, well, I haven't really thought about the new one, but I guess yes, because I'm writing something. So ideas are happening. And then you got to take those ideas and figure out which ones work in the setting and which ones kind of have an immediate reaction when we're playing them together. But yeah, I think we went in to record somewhere around 20 and ended up with 11.
Wow. And then when you have those songs that are unfinished, there's two schools of thought. One is Japanese B-sides. And the other one goes, well, there's a reason we didn't finish those songs.
Yeah, I think, this record in particular, because every piece was really important. It was about finding the balance of heavy and soft and how do those things relate with each other on this record. And we felt if we added one more heavier song, maybe it feels a little too much of a thing. And then if we added another soft one to kind of combat that, then it feels too long of a thing. I've always been a pretty big stickler. Every album of Manchester's has been 11 songs long, except for our third that was 10. I really don't like going above that. I think it can be contained in that for our specific sound and journey. This was a record where I think we would have tossed some songs as B-sides earlier if we didn't stay committed to chasing the song, which was a really new experience for us. Like, this isn't coming to us easy after a couple months. That's when it can kind of go like, well, it's just supposed to be a B-side. But we worked on all of them. They were all, as Catherine, our co-producer, would say, it's like you got to decide which kids are going to college and which ones aren't. And it's a tough call, but that's it.
Wow. When you have leftover songs like that, does your publishing businessman mindset ever kick in? You go, maybe I can give that song to that band and they'll track it, and therefore my publishing deal gets recouped further. Does that ever kick in?
No, that doesn't kick in. I was just trying to think if there is anything that feels like that. I do like writing songs for other artists. That's a fun thing to do. But really, I mean, for this album in particular, there's just something about how personal it all was tied into a record and a theme that I think if we would have tried to give that to somebody else, they'd be like, why did you give me a song about, a guy riding with the angel of death in a limousine sniffing pills? Doesn't really work in the context of another artist.
That one was fresh on my mind because I've been reading this book, bringing up hair metal for the second time. There's this great oral history called Nothing But a Good Time. It's about the LA strip scene and all the bands that, the rise and fall and all that. And the band Cinderella basically says, hey, we get a call out of nowhere from Gene Simmons. And he goes, hey, I want you guys to I want you guys to record all these songs I wrote. And then that is just genius publishing 101 right there. Like, record deal, awesome. And you don't realize that guy just earned a boatload of money from you tracking those songs.
And did those songs do well?
They kind of went, this is not only a bad record deal, but these songs suck. We're not going to take this. So I'm not sure if anyone did take those songs or those wound up as Japanese B-sides. But
yeah.
Every now and then you do have Japanese B-sides that are better than the album. I think Jimmy World established that one.
Yeah, man, you were right. You're right.
But back to you here. 3 quick questions and then you're a free man. And the first one is, because you've been home, yes, you're busy with the kids, but what do you do when you're not making music and you're not spending time with the kids? Is there a life for Andy?
Man, it's funny. I don't think so. I was talking to our bass player, Andy Prince, the other night. We were at a fire pit at my house, and he loves hunting and fishing and skateboarding and like building shit. Robert, my partner in the band, loves loves chopping down trees and building stuff. And I like basketball, and I like music. And those are sort of the things. I obviously love movies and media, and I like just art forms that are in media. But yeah, like my hobby is, if I'm really enjoying doing something, it's like playing guitar or writing something. So the lockdown and everything that happened was a really interesting experience, because I had so much time to sit and play guitar, because what else am I going to do? It's just sitting there, and I'm sitting there. So it was nice to sort of have this adolescent relationship with the guitar again,
without too many notes.
Yeah,
Next
exactly.
I have is I've been in New York almost my whole life. I have cousins that moved down to Roswell, the suburb of Atlanta. And when you spend time down there, you go, Georgia is as advanced as New York is. And then if you follow all of the entertainment trades, you see there's more movies being made in Georgia and maybe TV shows than New York.
Yeah.
So then you kind of realize Georgia has more going on than we do here, but it's little about it. But I would say as recent as 15 years ago, people would still be moving out of Georgia to New York and to LA to make it. Yeah, I'm curious when you started to realize, hey, we don't need to leave Georgia. We're going to be just fine here.
I think because we were touring so much, it's like we live very close to where we lived when we were in high school, because we were technically in high school when we first started touring.
Right.
And when you're touring like 250 shows a year for a while, you love the idea of coming back and not being in a place that's consumed by that. I've done like weeks long residencies in Nashville where I'm writing songs and with different people all every day, and everybody ends up at the bar every night after you work all day. And I'm like, if I lived there, I would die, because I love being social with the artists and musicians, and I need to live in the suburbs of Georgia. So it hasn't really affected or made anything easier for us. It's cool that it's happening here. But I'm still far enough away from the city that it just feels pretty isolated.
And the last question, what show on television should we be watching if we need a new show to binge in your eyes? What are we missing out on?
I'll just go for the thing I just finished, which I'm really obsessed with, and I can't stop talking. And I even mentioned, I think, something about getting berries earlier, and it's because I've been watching the show. But I can't stop watching that show Alone on Netflix about these people who are dropped, isolated in the Arctic with nothing. And they're so... I've never liked a show that has more skill sets I don't have. Like, I'm just fascinated by these people. Like, I'm literally dead within 45 minutes of being dropped off that helicopter, no doubt. The second I'm hungry, I'm calling the chopper to come pick me up. But yeah, that's one that sort of, it's meditative a bit. It's very slow. There's no music, but it's fun. I'd give it a go.
I would give you a little more credit than that. The $5 a day per diem that you lived on in the salad days, you knew what you were doing.
That's a fucking hilarious idea to have, like, just the most depressing, you're in a conversion van, you're surrounded by 8 people, but it's still called Alone, because that's exactly how you feel.
Yeah, taking turns of who's going to choose the stereo, who's going to put the next CD on. Well,
yeah, you've never been more alone than in a van ride with 8 guys from, New Mexico to Seattle.
Thankfully, that's your life and not my life. But thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to seeing you live in New York when things get normalish again. But in the meantime, congrats on your new record, man. And really, thanks for your time.
I appreciate it, man. Have a great one.
Paltrocast.